Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast. I am one of the hosts of this podcast, Kaylan Butine. Normally, I'm co-hosting with Jamie Smith, but today I am sharing a solo episode with you. I want to chat a bit about the stress that we experience as artists and some strategies for closing open loops that can cause us stress. So, of course, before I begin, I just want to say I'm not a therapist. If you're struggling with severe anxiety or health-related issues due to stress, definitely seek support from a physician or a counselor or somebody much more qualified than me. I will say I have done quite a bit of research and reading on stress management, and I have seen some growth in my own life in this area, though I am definitely far from perfect. So I wanted to share some of my experience with you, some resources that I recommend, and just talk a little bit about this topic, because I think this is something, just like mental health, that needs to be normalized and talked about more often in artist communities, especially women artist communities. So let me start by saying that I am talking today about a specific type of stress, one that is created by having a lot on your plate. And I think artists especially experience this type of stress because we wear so many hats and we're responsible for so many things. We're expected to do so much. There are so many different types of jobs that artists have that we're expected to do within our business. Many of us have other jobs. We have caretaking responsibilities. There's just a lot that is kind of floating around in our brains. There's a lot of ideas that we have. There's a lot of tasks that are not yet finished that are kind of always constantly in motion in our lives during this season of our life. So, but our brains can really only hold so much. Like, we only have space for so much in our active memory. We only have so much space for open tabs, right? We're not this endless Safari tab chain. Like, we eventually can't keep all of these thoughts going. I know for myself, sometimes it truly feels like I am thinking about 10 things at once. It's a little chaotic up there in the old noggin. There's just these open loops that are always kind of circling that I'm always thinking about, right? And I think having so many open loops cause us mental fatigue and even physical fatigue. They wear us down over time. They create a feeling of overwhelm and anxiety that maybe is a little bit unnecessary if we were able to better strategize some ways to take care of these open loops. I do want to just point out here that open loops are not dreams. Like, I'm not talking about daydreaming or thinking positively about visions for your future art career. Dreams are very different from open loops because dreams usually aren't yet in process in the form of a tangible task. And really what I'm talking about when I say open loops are things that you've started but you haven't actually finished, tasks or ideas that are sort of on hold in your brain that occupy your active thoughts. A couple things that open loops are not. They're not dreams, like I mentioned, but they're also not regular tasks that you just like do automatically daily or weekly that you don't really have to think about. They're also not these big complex ideas for the future, like I mentioned, a dream can be or a vision can be. They're not the day-to-day things that you think about and complete in the moment. And I have an example of this. One thing that I thought of when I was thinking about what an open loop is not for me is packing my kids' lunches each morning. So I have 3 kids. I pack all of their lunches. I'm kind of in my partnership responsible for the food in my house. And that's one of my jobs is packing the kids' lunches, right? So, I spend maybe 5 to 8 minutes packing their lunches each morning. But after I dig around the cupboards and the fridge and figure out like what I'm going to pack for them, after I physically put it in their lunch boxes and then in their bags, I have closed that loop. That task is not on my mind anymore. It's like there was a start, there was a finish, I wrapped it up, and that closed the loop, and that meant there was no more stress for me involved in that task. I was able to take it off my brain. Now, if while I was making their lunches, I noticed that I was out of several snack items like dried mango and applesauce that I normally put in their lunch, or apple slices or bananas or whatever it is, right? If I didn't immediately put those items on my grocery list, I have a magnetized grocery list that I keep on my fridge. If I didn't immediately write those things on the grocery list, I would probably keep that open loop running in my brain throughout the day, continually reminding myself, oh yeah, hey, remember, Kaylan, you said you were going to add the dried mango to the list. Remember, next time you go to Costco, you need to pick up dried mango and applesauce. Like that would become an open loop if I didn't complete that task. Sometimes closing an open loop and being kind to your brain is really just about the systems that you're utilizing right in front of you. So a simple example is making sure you have a grocery list that lives in your kitchen that you can easily access every time you use up something that you need to purchase at the grocery store the next time you go. So the process of getting some of these loops closed is something you can do. The process that I'm going to talk about in today's episode is something that you can do anytime you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed. It's a multi-step process, but it's one that is really simple, and it starts with a brain dump. I love me some brain dumps. This is like so cathartic for me to get out a piece of paper and just write everything down that is on my mind. So that is kind of step 1, is to do a brain dump. Take a blank sheet of paper and write down all of the open loops. Remember, an open loop is a task or idea that is on hold in your brain that is occupying your active thoughts, something that you've started but you haven't finished. So write all of those down on a piece of paper. It might take you some time to get yourself warmed up with this, but I bet once you start writing, once you get a few of those open loops down, they're going to keep coming, and you're going to realize there's actually many more of them that are occupying your active thoughts than you really thought. So once you do your brain dump, you might feel even more overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many more of these than I realized. It's okay to feel overwhelmed in this moment. Definitely, this is the time to take some deep breaths and trust that facing your open loops, looking at all of them and processing them will help you towards, facing that stress and processing that stress. And we're going to talk about some ways to knock some of those open loops off your list so you have a little more mental space. So the next step, after you've written down every open tab that you've got in your brain on a piece of paper, I want you to follow the 3 Ds. So we are going to do these 3 Ds: delegate, delete, and do. Okay, it doesn't matter what order you really do these in, but we're going to delete, we're going to delegate, and we're going to do. So first, I'm going to start with delete. You're going to go through this list. You're going to cross off some things that you know do not need to be there. I'm giving you permission to take some things off your plate. There are always a few things you can get rid of. It's probably not going to be half your list, but even 1, 2, 3 things, if you can take that pencil, take that pen, and just put a big X through it. Okay? Just completely take it off your plate for right now. I promise, if you're feeling anxiety about this, if this thing is worthy of your time and energy, it will come back around. This is something that will eventually find its way back into your brain. But the point of this exercise is we want to give you a little more mental space right now. And this mental space might last for a few days. It might last for a few weeks. I bet that the things that you're going to cross off are things that are self-imposed expectations that you have that I'm giving you permission to let go of. Like, do you really have to reorganize the snack closet? Is that really an expectation that you need to have of yourself during this season? Right? Like, what are some things that you can just take off the list for right now so you can have some mental space? Okay, so that is delete. I want you to delete some things off your list. Is your list feeling lighter already? Are you feeling better yet? The second D is to delegate. We're going to mark some open loops in a way that lets you know you're going to pass those things on to somebody else. You can mark these however you want. Maybe you're going to take a highlighter. Maybe you're going to make another neat little list for the delegated items, the delegated loops. You could circle them, however you want to mark them. I want you to go through that brain dump, look at all those loops and think, what can I give to someone else? What can I take off my plate and pass on to someone else in this season? Again, this may not be many things, but even if it's 1 or 2 things that you buck up and ask for help for, I think it will provide you with some space that you're probably so desperately needing if you chose to listen to this episode. This is your moment to ask for a little help. You are absolutely incredible. I know you have so much that you're doing. You have so much on your plate, but I want to remind you that you are not a superhero. You can't do it all the time. Decide what you can delegate, whether it is hiring a photographer to photograph your next series of work that's almost finished, because that is just an open loop that you really need off your plate, right? Maybe it is asking a partner to take care of meals on the weekends for the next month. What can you kind of pass on to somebody else so that you can have a little more mental clarity, a little more space in your life? It doesn't have to be a permanent decision. This could be a one-time delegation, or this delegation could be something that you try out and then it actually becomes part of your permanent routine, because guess what? The other person could do it just fine, and that whole solution became a much healthier situation for you. Okay, so we've deleted, we've delegated. The third D is do. This is where we actually close some of those loops. We're going to make an action plan for getting some items done and knocking them off our list. So one method for turning this brain dump into an actual to-do list is to take your do's and arrange them by size or time. So for example, let's say after you've done your delegating, you've done your deleting, maybe you still have a list of 10 things, 10 open loops that you want to turn into do's, things that you want to complete soon, so they're kind of off your plate. I would organize these by the smallest amount of time to the largest amount of time that these things are going to take. The simplest loops and then the more complex ones, right? Kind of organize them in some way so you can look at the amount of time and effort and energy that's going to have to go into these to-dos. Then what I would do, and my recommendation for you, is to tackle the smallest ones first, so you get some quick wins built right up getting your confidence built up, getting your momentum going. Pick 3 to 5 things that you can complete within the next hour. Maybe it is organizing your snack closet and you're like, I'm just going to take 15 minutes and do this right now. Then I'm going to take 15 minutes and clean my paintbrushes that have been sitting there for a week. Like, get those little things that you can knock out a few of them in an hour or two. Set a timer, focus, and just get them done. Get them off your plate. The next thing you know, we're halfway done with this list, right? If you had that list of 10 things that you want to do and you've just knocked out 3 to 5 of them, you've made major progress. From there, you can move on to creating an action plan for completing the bigger items. If these bigger items are more complex, you're going to have to spend some time, really thinking about how you're going to get those things done. So I know that we give a lot of support on this podcast in the form of strategies. And sometimes when you're feeling stressed, strategies or formulas or my type A-ness are not always helpful. If this episode only made you feel more overwhelmed, please definitely take some deep breaths. Go find some quiet space for yourself as soon as you're able. I just want you to know that you are human, you are doing an amazing job, and you will get through this stressful time. I care about you as a human first, but I also want to help you get through some of these crazy things. So I hope this episode was helpful. There are a few other episodes that we've released in the past on the Thriving Artist podcast that you may like that were similar to this. Episode 44 was how to plan out your week, which has some great planning tips in it. Episode number 4, how to time block effectively in 5 steps, kind of walks you through some ways to think about your time in time blocks and how to plan for those and be very focused. Episode number 5, how to show up authentically even when you can't give 100%, is an episode where we're reflecting on this very idea of like, I can't do all the things all the time. How could I still show up in ways that are meaningful? And then next week, we're going to be releasing episode number 54, which is 5 simple ways to plan smarter as an artist. This will be a really good one to continue this conversation about planning, about systems, about ways that we can move through the world with intention. We would really love for you to join us for this month of our programming at the Thrive Together Network. It's really all about mapping the year ahead in ways that are smart and sustainable so that we can feel less stressed, so we're not as overwhelmed. We have 6 more episodes releasing this November and December where we are laying out our best tips for planning and creating a vision for the art career that you want. We really hope you can join us here on the podcast or come be an artist where we can really get to know you by joining our network. You can head to thrivetogethernetwork.com to learn more. The open loop session I did today is exactly the type of thing we walk you through each week on Art and Tea, which is our Tuesday Zoom calls with dozens of other artists that are and these calls are included in your Thrive Together Network membership. And we actually have some free open house sessions for Art and Tea starting on November 28th, where you can just show up and join us to learn about what we offer. We're going to be giving you some free tools and planning exercises to plan your art for 2024. So there's just a lot happening this month, and it's a great time to kind of get a peek inside our community, see if you like what we're about, and see if you want to join us for the year ahead. So thank you for listening. As always, Jamie and I are here for you. We are cheering you on, and we believe in the work that you are doing as thriving artists.